Additional aids and services are available upon request to individuals with disabilities. If you need an accommodation to participate in a training session, including face-to-face or virtual or access and use or understand materials on the TCAL websites, please contact TCAL at least 7 business days prior to the session you are attending with your request. Send your request by email to pdportal@tamu.edu or call us, including Relay Texas, at 1-800-441-7323 during regular business hours.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to Integrating Soft Skills and Career Awareness in Instruction. My name is Beth Ponder with Train PD at TCAL. I will be your host today, along with Wendy Christensen from our team. And with that, I want to welcome our presenter, Steve Schmidt.
Thank you, Beth. And I want to welcome you to our session today on integrating soft skills and career awareness into instruction. I'm Steve Schmidt. I have been involved in our field of adult basic ed for about 32 years and excited to be here this afternoon. I always look forward to these sessions for not only things that I can share, but things that I can learn as well, because there's always such great ideas that we have. There is a handout that is available for our session today, and I would encourage you to use that because I will be referring to it throughout. And I love to give handouts because certainly we'll be providing a lot of examples of how we integrate soft skills and career awareness inside our instruction, and several things are available inside the handout. So please download or please have up on your computer in some way, shape, or form the handout, because I will be referring to it, and you'll see page 1 and page 3 in the corner. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about those various pages. What are we going to do today? Good question. We're going to talk about ways to integrate soft skills into instruction. We're going to explain how to integrate career awareness as well into instruction. And you will be able to access several resources as well. So I hope that sounds fair. Let's go ahead and get started and grab that handout, and please use that. I want to introduce you to someone who was very special to me in my life. Next to the big blue arrow, that is my grandma, Agnes Sweeney. She was quite a lady. She was a mom. She had 5 daughters, including my mom as one of those, the 4th child. She worked for many years as a cook and a baker at the telephone company. But her husband, Jack, who's in the picture there on the left, he died at a fairly young age. He was in his 40s, and this was in 1942. Jack, like so many did during the Depression, was trying to keep his family going. He worked as a janitor, but he also bought a farm with the thought of, hey, we can have fresh milk and we can have chickens with eggs and we can do all this stuff. But the strain of trying to work 2 jobs together killed him. And as I always like to say, he bought a farm and then he bought the farm. Ha. But there was no laughing matter at the time. It's 1942, and my grandma Sweeney has 5 girls now. She's the lone breadwinner. And so what does she do? And that's when she became an entrepreneur. And she sold the farm, bought a larger house in town, and she started renting out rooms. And that is what kept them going during those hard years of World War II. Housing was at a premium. And so she was able to rent those rooms and keep the family going, and raised 5 girls, and all had a professional jobs. She told my mom, Ruth, you can do anything you want to do as long as you become a nurse. Mom, not shockingly enough, became a nurse because Grandma Sweeney said, I can pay for 2 years of nurse's training, but that's about all we can do. And that's what Mom did. And she was a nurse. So we learn a lot about the world of work through our families. And if you'll join me in the handout on page 3, you'll see the family job tree, or the career family tree worksheet. I like to call it the family job tree. If I did this for my family, and I've had some chance to sit down and do this, we can see you've already talked about the Sweeney side of the family. Did not talk about the Schmidt side of the family. My grandpa Schmidt was an architect. His wife was a housewife, And then, as I mentioned, my mom was a nurse. My dad was a mid-level manager at the telephone company. And I have three older sisters. My oldest sister was an accountant and a chief financial officer for several different organizations. My next oldest sister was that person in the family that all the other siblings hate because everything they do is amazing. She was, valedictorian of her class and she's written books. She's the smartest person I've ever seen. And she was the personnel director at several educational institutions throughout her career and worked in banking early on. My next sister is a volunteer coordinator at Hospice, which is a great organization. I learned a lot about the world of work from what my dad would say when he came home, conversations at the dinner table, and from when my mom, well, she raised us kids. She wasn't working, but I heard stories from before we were born. And then she went back to work after my dad retired. So, guess what I'm going to ask you to do? This is where we get into the audience participation. Would you please and thank you to fill out the family job tree on page 3. And of course, fill in what you know. Start with your immediate family, brothers, sisters, if we have those parents. And then if you know grandparents, you can go ahead and fill that out. Please take a minute, think about the jobs that you saw in your own family. Go ahead and think about what jobs do my siblings have? What jobs did my folks have on either side? Grandparents' jobs, if you know those. Which family member's job had the greatest impact on you and why? And I show this picture of these young men, police officers. Our neighbor down the street is a deputy sheriff in our county. And I see his son and his friends are all the time playing police officer and they're running around doing all this stuff when they're not arguing with each other. They're playing police officer. So I can see that his father's job has had a huge impact on this young man and his friends that play police officer. This is where we learn about the world of work. The dinner table, conversations inside. If we go visit family members' place of work, all those things have a huge impact on us. That's where I first learned about the world of work as well. This family tree worksheet comes from a resource that's been around for a long time. It is a classic resource, but I think it is still good and it is still, thankfully, available. This resource is called Integrating Career Awareness into the ABE and ESOL Classroom. And the very last page of your handout, page 9, does have a clickable link to that resource. It has a fairly exhaustive set of career awareness lessons that can be done. And these are plug and play lessons. We can see I've put up on the screen a screenshot from this resource, and lesson 2 talks about looking at how we get jobs. They've got good ideas for scaling it if your learners are either above the target or below the target to where the curriculum is written. It's a very hands-on curriculum. I love things that are activity based, and these particular resources is very activity based. So I encourage you to check it out. You've already checked out part of it. This is an early lesson about the career family tree, and it really gets students involved and very applicable for both the ABE classroom and for our English language learners as well. It's great on both of those sides. So check it out and see how it can help you and your students with career awareness. Are we ready to play Minute to Win It? You have 1 minute to list as many healthcare related jobs as you can. 1 minute, as many healthcare related jobs as you can. The timer has started. I'd say try to do it off the top of your head. We've got about 10 seconds. There are a lot of people that work in healthcare. And case in point, I had surgery in January, and I think I got a bill from everyone at the hospital except maybe the cleaning person. There's a lot of people that work in healthcare, that is for sure. So, why don't we do this? There is a big point to this exercise. I remember some years ago seeing this research. I think it was about 2011. They did it with middle school students, and they asked middle school students to name as many jobs as they can, not just in healthcare, period. Just list all the jobs you can. And the study found that the students could only name 5 jobs. And this is in the whole world of work, not just healthcare, the whole world of work. And I was blown away seeing that. It kind of made sense to me. We know what we know. And so we might know what people in our neighborhood do and our immediate family do, but we may not know other things depending upon where we were raised or how we were raised. And so that made sense to me in some way, shape, or form. Usually, when we ask students to talk about jobs in healthcare, we get two. We get doctor and nurse. But there are so many more jobs than just doctor and nurse. These are jobs that folks can do with a 2-year degree or less, 16 health science jobs, many cases that we can train for at our local community or technical college, including some of the ones we know well and some of the ones we don't know as well. Health information technologist, a coder, a lab tech, radiologist, LPN, farm tech, surge tech, CNA, all of these ones are jobs that we can do that our students come right out of our program or in the IET that they're working on and receive these jobs, which pay very well. A lot of opportunities out there, but we don't know what we don't know until we know what we don't know. And you can quote me on that. Lots of things out there that we can help our students learn. And I want to refer you, please, to page 8 inside the handout, if you would. This is a wonderful activity that I wish we had time to do. It's called Healthcare Spontaneous Stories. So join me, please, toward the end of the handout on page 8. And what it is basically 4 lists. There's a list of employees, list of certain jobs. There's a list of time periods throughout the workday or the first shift workday anyway. There's some various settings and there's some various situations that come up. We have some of the ones we just saw in terms of jobs. These are all healthcare related jobs and different settings. Our office, a coworker's office, the supply room, the reception room, in the hospital administrator's office. And then some situations are going on where maybe we made a mistake or a coworker made a mistake or the boss is upset. Someone's been injured. We've got a patient that's in pain. Something funny had just happened. 2 coworkers are arguing or there's too much to do. So we have all these things, and we could draw numbers or use a random number generator, and we get a certain number. If you get, say, number 5, you're an EMT, and then you draw another number, and let's say that's number 7, and it's 2 p.m. And then you draw another number, and it's 2, and you're in a coworker's office. And then you draw another number, and it's number 9, 2 coworkers are arguing. And so from there, we've got the ground rules to create a wonderful story. And I always encouraged students, or when I've done this in a PD setting, to really have fun with this and get creative with this. And I have been in situations where people were laughing so hard they were crying. That's the creative things that they were coming up in which to do these spontaneous stories. But this is a whole lot of fun to do. And it certainly builds writing skills beyond the writing that we could do with this. How does this activity help our students? It shows background knowledge and creativity, certainly. Creates dialogue that builds on each other's experiences. Awareness for possibilities. I really love that. That's the answer that I was hoping to, as well as the other ones. That what if you didn't know what a phlebotomist was? It sounds kind of weird. What is that exactly? But if you didn't know what a phlebotomist was, this would be a great opportunity to do some career exploration and find out what a phlebotomist does, or what a farm tech does, or what a EMT does. All these things. Hard skills, that technical ability that we have, our resume, get us in the door. They might get us an interview, they might get us hired, but the key thing is soft skills will keep us on the job. We've probably all worked with people who were brilliant people. They had the knowledge, they had the skills. Well, we hated working with them because their soft skills were terrible. They didn't really know how to work well with others. Soft skills are incredibly important, and soft skills keep us on the job. I've seen different lists of soft skills, and they usually have a lot of commonalities available. I like this particular definition that comes from the National Education Association, which are 21st century skills. They say these are the 4 C's. And the 4 C's, as you can see on page 2, are communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. There'll be subsets, of course, of these skills that come up. But what do we need to survive and thrive in the 21st century workplace? We need to be able to communicate, to talk well, get our ideas across, listen to others, hear when they communicate. Collaboration. So much of the modern workforce is done in teams. People need to work together and work together effectively. Just because we put students in groups does not mean they know how to work together effectively in a group. There is some coaching that we could do with that. Critical thinking. We've got to look at problems in different ways. Different problems are coming, and the problems that we're going to be solving in a few years have not been invented yet. And of course, creativity is something we need to be thinking about as well. So the 4 C's there have a brief definition of each one and then some examples on page 2 of how we can teach that inside the classroom. What do you think was the best moment in the United States space program? So here we see a famous picture in July of 1969 of Neil Armstrong walking around on the surface of the moon, or that might be Buzz Aldrin. I'm not 100% sure. But we look to that as some of the pinnacles of what happened. I think personally that there was another moment, and maybe me being a little bit more old school. I think a mission that didn't really succeed in the way it was supposed to, but succeeded in another way that was vastly even more important was the greatest moment. It's in the Apollo program. I know there's some other things going on today. Apollo 13 was a forgotten mission when it took off in early 1970. We'd been to the moon already a couple times, and people were like, yeah, we've done this before, no big deal. Apollo 13 was rapidly approaching the moon, and they were looking at maybe the next day getting ready to descend to the lunar surface when suddenly, bang, there was a huge bang, and the very famous phrase, Houston, we have a problem, came. And they had a problem because they did not know this at the time, but one of their oxygen tanks had exploded. Turns out it had been dropped on a factory floor before, and they had never caught it, and it messed up some of its internal components. But it exploded and damaged the tank next to it. So oxygen's leaking out. They're having other problem with fuel cells. One of the biggest problems, of course, was getting them back home, but also getting them back home alive. They decided to go from the command module, which there was designed to have 3 guys in it for a long time, to the lunar module, which was only designed for 2 guys for a couple days to go. And it was not designed to serve as the lifeboat, which it became. We saw the 4 C's in action as they were breathing out carbon dioxide, and their carbon dioxide scrubbers were getting full because it was not designed for those 3 guys to be in the lunar module for an extended period of time. So essentially, they had to put a square peg in a round hole because one company had designed the lunar module and one company had designed the command module, and these canisters were vastly different from each one because different contractors worked on them. So they had to do some critical thinking. This is a problem that had never come up before during the space program. How are we going to solve it? How are we going to get these guys breathable oxygen? They had to be creative. They only had a certain number of things they could use. They had part of the mission program and duct tape and other things. So it's good to have duct tape when you're problem solving. They had to get creative. They had to work together. They gave a team of these engineers, these guys with pocket protectors and the white shirts together in order to solve this very difficult problem. They had to work together in a limited amount of time to save these guys' life. And they had to keep communicating. They had to tell the astronauts what they needed to know. They had to tell them how to build this contraption that they came up with. And there is a picture of the contraction. Notice the duct tape, of which they used quite a bit of in order to make this happen. But through using the four C's together, they were able to save the lives of these three astronauts. And the world was holding its breath as these guys were coming back. Amazing story. But I show this to illustrate the four C's in action. And I would say, even with all our modern technology, even with generative AI, which is rapidly making inroads into the workplace, there is always room for creativity. I don't think creativity will ever be downsized or will lose its contract. There'll always be room for creativity out there in the workplace. If you'll notice there again on page 2, some of the things suggested under creativity, do some project-based learning or do problem-based learning to solve problems. Maybe we could create a portfolio of things that we've done in class or other work experience that we could have ready as we're showing a potential employer is one idea on how we could create a creative project for our learners. Which of these things have you tried, and what tips might you have for the rest of us about doing these various things? Best skill is the ability to always plan for what if. Absolutely. Be curious for those who may have done some project-based learning or problem-based learning. What projects have you done? What problems have you explored? Done some service learning projects that promote teamwork and problem solving. Good. Sounds like the four C's to me. Brainstorming with a graphic organizer, looking at both sides. Done some analyzing of arguments. Think aloud. Yay. All right. Love the think aloud. I think that's a technique we don't do nearly as often. Virtual escape rooms, those are cool. I think that can translate to adults too. And we got some good things there. So just some general ideas that you'll see on page 2 of some ways that we can bring the four C's together. And I'm a big fan of both project and problem-based learning. I think we can easily cover all four of the C's through doing those. Bunch of ideas on how we can get those soft skills inside the classroom. We don't have to do this separately. I think the best way to do is we can seamlessly integrate soft skills and career awareness into these reading, writing, and math activities that we are doing already. That's the big takeaway. We can seamlessly integrate soft skills and career awareness into the reading, math, and writing tasks that we are already doing. Let's do a case study. They're facing a problem in Harris County, and we need to help them out. If you join me on the bottom of page 4. So this is a way we can bring the four C's into the classroom with case studies. Budget cuts. We never have to deal with that until then. I know this is really foreign to us, but let's pretend that we have to deal with these things. So Harris County wants to lower its employees' overtime cost. To the rescue, the personnel office comes out and they sent out this memo to all supervisors about its new overtime policy. When workloads increase to a level requiring hours in excess of an employee's regular duty assignment, and when such work is estimated to require a full shift of 8 hours or more on 2 or more consecutive days, even though unscheduled days intervene, an employee's tour of duty shall be altered so as to include the hours when such work must be done, unless an adverse impact would result from such employee's absence from his previously scheduled assignment. That goes out via email, and then there's a pause, and then the inbox of the personnel office explodes, and they received 268 emails about the new policy, as well as 73 phone calls regarding the new policy. Let's examine this. Question 1, why did the personnel office receive so many phone calls and emails about this new policy? What's the problem here? Definitely not direct and to the point, which begs the question, what is the point? Communication in the workplace. This case study really illustrates that. This might have made perfect sense to whomever in the personnel office sent this out, and they're looking at their policy and procedure manual, and they're obviously trying to make sure this doesn't run afoul of their other policies. I'll be amazed if anybody understands in the trenches out in the workforce exactly what this means. And I don't understand it. So this would be a good one to discuss the importance of communication in the workplace. This has a clickable link also where there's an article about ways to reduce overtime. And that we could add to this discussion of taking things from a management perspective, helping learners understand things from both sides. Workers may want overtime to do it, but of course, there's a limit in usually what businesses can afford to pay. How can we find that happy medium? And then finally, the big question, what does this case study tell us about how important writing is in the workplace? I think we could probably agree that it is incredibly important. Think about this particular situation. 73 phone calls. Someone's got to make those calls. Someone's got to answer those calls. Someone's got to return those calls. Think about 268 emails. Someone's got to write those emails. Someone's got to read those emails. Someone's got to respond to those emails. And most likely that's going to bring about another flurry of emails while the personnel office tries to correct the issue and make it more understandable, which might lead to another cascade of emails. So workplace writing is very important. Is there an easy way that we could express this policy that wouldn't require us hiring a lawyer in order to understand, and even they may not? So a couple of good case studies that you see in addition to the Walmart case study at the top, which talk about workplace communication as well. So again, examples of how we can show the 4 C's inside the workplace. Resource spotlight time. Teaching the Skills That Matter has been around for several years, and it's a great resource. Could talk about it a little bit personally because I was working with some Texas adult educators earlier this spring on adopting it in their programs. And I know there's some plans for some statewide rollout. And I think you participated in an early iteration of TSTM. But this really does so much with helping students get ready for not only for the workplace, but just making sure they're getting the best possible things that we in adult ed have to offer. I always remember TSTM with the 953. And the 9 is the 9 skills that matter, which look very similar to ones that we've been talking about with the 4 C's. But in addition to that, it's mentioning some other ones with navigating systems, like how do we navigate the healthcare system to get the help that we need? How will we show our adaptability and willingness to learn? How do we respect the differences that everyone has that we come across every day? How do we do those? And it does this in lessons in 5 topic areas, including civics, including the very important digital literacy, including financial and health literacy, as well as workforce prep. And then it uses 3 approaches that research has found to be incredibly effective, which is contextualized learning, as well as problem and project-based learning. If you haven't seen TSTM before, maybe it's been a while since you heard about it, I would encourage you to go back and take a look at it. The lessons are available out there. They're plug and play. In other words, that you can grab them and use them, or you can grab them and adapt them. They always have suggestions about how to adapt them. And these were created by some of the top minds in adult education, like Patsy Egan and Dr. Susan Finn Miller and others that were behind the creation of these resources. If you're not familiar with TSTM, the Teaching the Skills That Matter, please check it out and you will see these great lessons that cover the 953. There's some outstanding things there as well. And good, and I'm not surprised to hear this because you guys in Texas, PD is always bigger and better in Texas, have done a crosswalk of these with the Texas content standards. So great job, Texas. Well done there. Let's check out page 5. So looking for other ways, how can we do career awareness? How can we build these soft skills inside the classroom? One skill that we're always working on with our students is, of course, critical thinking. We're trying to build their writing skills. And I love graphic organizers to do that. Here is just using a graphic organizer, which is a what, why, how, just 3 basic columns, very simple and straightforward graphic organizer. And we're using it in a workplace situation. We're looking at job openings in this case. We go online, we look at a job opening, and then we demonstrate for students how to fill out the what, why, how chart, work with them, and then let them do this. We're building our writing skills in the process. We'd start out with what does the job require? We pulled out, it requires strong time management to handle various tasks efficiently. We got a lot going on, so we need time management skills. There's the what. And then students are going to be thinking about, okay, I see what's required. Where do I fit in? What skills do I have? And a lot of times, students, especially students without a large work history, struggle to do this. They don't realize there are other transferable skills, things they've done in their lives as parents or community members, or things they did at school, or that part time job they had when they were 16, about how these things can translate into the world of work. The why question is basically answering, why am I the right person for this job? For this particular example, we see over the past 5 years, I've balanced work and school. I needed to organize my time well so I could give school my best effort and give my employer my best effort. And they mentioned how they did it. Okay, you want an example of time management? You got one. Here's what I did. I'd go to the library for an hour to do homework after I got off work at 9. So that shows time management skills, handling work, handling school at the same time. And then we're going to go with the how side of the what, why, how chart, and that would be giving specific evidence. What really proves this? Well, I finished my GED and I did it while I was working 25 hours a week, had a significant part-time job, and raising my daughter. And then going back to high school times where I was working 18 hours a week and still completed schoolwork on time. This is a way to integrate these writing skills, and certainly does some critical thinking skills as we're trying to match up the job requirement with what our skills are. The what, why, how chart is a great way to do this while building writing skills. It is transferable. I love things that we can do that play multiple duties and that we can use to do other things. For example, I love using the what, why, how chart if we're working with our students, getting them ready to take the GED RLA test, the Reasoning Through Language Arts. They've learned how to use it earlier. Now we could use it in the GED RLA prep. We're reading the source material. And this is some source material that I'd created some years ago, which is a cover letter. It was an example of a really strong cover letter and an example of a cover letter that needs some work. We're translating the skill. We're trying to prove that Enrique has a better cover letter than Lozario does. Why does he do it? Well, he meets what we're supposed to do in a cover letter. We're supposed to talk about our education experience and our job experience and how that meets the qualifications. How does he do it? We're pulling out specific evidence. Using this in that earlier activity, we can then transfer that to a higher level skill, and students will be able to do that a lot more easily because we've had practice with doing that. Does double duty. It's a transferable skill, and we can use this in many ways. We've used it on the GED test, and now we've got it in the workplace. If you'll join me on page 7, we've got a conflict there. So page 7 is some other things that we can do, resolving conflicts, some critical thinking activities that we could do that we could use with writing and reading as well. We have a conflict here with two guys who work at a plumbing company, James and Mick. They're facing a conflict because one has more practical work experience while another has a certification, which the other one doesn't. And so we could look at this conflict. What's the conflict? What's going on here? Why is it happening? How could we resolve this situation? So using the same tool, we could go through to do this. And the examples that you'll see on page 7 come from a New Readers Press publication, which they've given me permission to use in training. Some different conflicts that we could go through that have workplace relevance, that practice communication and collaboration and critical thinking skills there. What's the big takeaway today? I hope that you have seen a couple things. I hope that you've seen one, that you don't have to reinvent the wheel to integrate career awareness and soft skills in your instruction. I hope that you're seeing, hey, we're doing reading, writing, and math activities, and I can integrate soft skills and career awareness inside those things. I hope that's been a takeaway. I hope that you've gotten some ideas that you can use and springboard into some things inside the classroom. We've looked at several different things, the spontaneous stories, the what, why, how chart. We've done some case studies. We did the minute to win it. We did the career family tree. So I hope that's given you some ideas. And I hope too that you've seen some great resources with the ICA, Integrating Career Awareness, and TSTM. I did mention also on page 9 another great resource, which is Adult Ed Med, which was developed by Texas adult educators. Thank you all again. Appreciate you being here.
We hope you enjoyed this pre-recorded webinar. After you have passed the final test with a score of 80% or greater and have received your certificate of completion, please take a few moments to complete the course evaluation. Participant feedback helps Train PD at TCAL continue to provide high-quality professional development. To leave a course feedback, please go to the completed portion of your transcript. To do this, hover over the My Learning tab and select View Your Transcript. Click on the drop-down arrow next to the word Active and select Completed. Then, click Evaluate in the drop-down menu next to the course you just completed. Please note that your feedback is greatly appreciated.